Welcome to this explainer, everyone. Today, we're tracing the life story of one of the absolute most polarizing and, honestly, instantly recognizable historical figures of the 20th century. I'm talking about Ernesto Che Guevara. We're going to go chronologically, following his entire journey right from his birth and childhood in Rosario, provincial Argentina, all the way to his death in the jungles of Bolivia in 1967. Let's get right into it. Okay, let's dive straight into this, because the big question here is, how on earth did an upper-middle-class, asthmatic youth, a medical student no less, transform into a hardcore Marxist guerrilla commander? It's literally a historical mystery. As you'll see, his path to becoming a global revolutionary icon wasn't exactly a straight line. Section 1. The Motorcycle Diaries. Before he was the revolutionary known as Che, a 23-year-old Ernesto and his good friend, biochemist Alberto Granado, hopped on a sputtering 500cc Norton motorcycle in December 1951 to travel across South America. And guys, this was not just some quick weekend getaway. We're talking about an 8,000-mile, 9-month, grueling journey across 5 different countries. This massive trip is what truly exposed this young medical student to the harsh, everyday realities of his continent. They left Buenos Aires and made their way through Chile, Peru, and eventually even reached Miami. The things he saw completely changed him. At the Chuquicamata copper mine in Chile, he witnessed workers being severely exploited by foreign monopolies. Then, near the ancient Inca ruins in Peru, he saw the extreme poverty of the indigenous descendants. And at the San Pablo leper colony, he treated patients who literally had no clothes or basic medicine. It was a huge reality check that profoundly affected his worldview. During this journey, he wrote, "I want to link my destiny to that of the poor of this world." You can really see his compassion shifting here. It wasn't just a basic ethical response anymore. It was turning into a deep political conviction. He started to believe that the entire Latin American continent needed radical liberation. The contrast is absolutely wild. Before the trip, he was just your ordinary upper-middle-class medical student from provincial Argentina. But after those 8,000 miles, he was a highly politicized Marxist, seeking a fully united and liberated Latin America. He did return to Argentina to finally finish his medical degree, but he came back a completely changed man. Section 2. Radicalization in Guatemala. By 1953, with his medical degree in hand, he traveled to Guatemala to see President Jacobo Arbenzi's ambitious social and land reforms firsthand. Now, to put things into perspective, the sheer scale of inequality in Guatemala at that time was staggering. In a country of 3 million people, 70% of the land was owned by just 2% of the population, mostly European descent elites. President Arbenzi's reforms were directly challenging these elites, as well as incredibly powerful U.S. monopolies like the United Fruit Company. But pushing back against those powers had a brutal cost. In June 1954, the CIA orchestrated a mercenary invasion. U.S. warplanes actually bombed civilians, and ultimately, the democratic government of Arbenz was overthrown and replaced by a harsh right-wing regime. Guevara was there for all of this. He wrote at the time, "We were betrayed from without and within." Experiencing this coup completely convinced him that peaceful political change was just impossible. He believed armed mass struggle against U.S.-backed regimes was now the only viable path forward, which fully solidified his Marxist ideology. Section 3. Meeting Fidel Castro. After narrowly escaping Guatemala, Guevara made his way to Mexico City, and this is actually where he officially earned the famous nickname Che. It was right here in Mexico City, in 1955, that he finally met a fellow exiled revolutionary he'd heard so much about, Fidel Castro. The two men instantly bonded over their shared anti-imperialist goals. Che officially joined Castro's 26th of July movement, stepping up to be the group's highly passionate physician. Planning a revolution from exile wasn't exactly smooth sailing, though. In June 1956, Mexican authorities arrested them for illegally stockpiling weapons. They were locked up in the Miguel Schultz jail. But honestly, sharing a prison cell for a month only deepened their revolutionary camaraderie and their absolute determination. Right after they got out, in November 1956, 82 fighters squeezed onto a rickety old yacht named the Grama and sailed for Cuba. But disaster struck the moment they landed. They were immediately ambushed. Out of 82, only about a dozen survived, including Che and Fidel, and they had to flee deep into the Sierra Maestra Mountains. That was the harsh beginning of their guerrilla war. Section 4. Battle of Santa Clara. Let's skip ahead a bit. After months of grueling mountain warfare, by the summer of 1958, the revolution had gained serious momentum. But they still faced one massive obstacle. Now, what's really interesting about this conflict is the insane imbalance of military power. On one side, you had dictator Batista's forces, 10,000 strong, equipped with armor trains, tanks, and full air support. On the other side, Che's guerrilla forces in the Las Villas region. They were exhausted, barefoot, and essentially a dispirited army of shadows. Against all odds, Che executed this absolutely brilliant tactical assault in December 1958. He divided his tiny band into two groups, literally commandeered tractors from a local university to tear up the railway tracks, and derailed Batista's heavily armored train. After attacking with Molotov cocktails in the sweltering heat, 350 government soldiers actually surrendered. It was a total game changer. This stunning victory at Santa Clara completely shattered the regime's morale. By January 1, 1959, dictator Batista had fled Cuba. The local military garrison surrendered and the revolution had officially triumphed. Section 5. La Cabaña and Legacy. Now, the immediate aftermath of the revolution in 1959, when they actually had to secure power, is where we find arguably the most controversial chapter of his life. To understand the climate at the time, we have to look at the historical context. 20,000. That is the estimated number of Cubans murdered by the U.S.-supported Batista dictatorship prior to the revolution's victory. The public was fiercely demanding immediate justice for years of brutal abuses. Taking command of the La Cabaña fortress, Guevara led revolutionary tribunals to address these crimes. Estimates show that anywhere from 55 to over 144 executions were ordered by Guevara across Cuba, and at La Cabaña specifically, targeting individuals charged with desertion, treason, torture, and murder. And this duality is exactly why his legacy remains so incredibly polarized today. To many, he is an enduring symbol of liberation, an anti-imperialist icon who fearlessly fought against poverty and extreme inequality. But to others, he is the hardened commander of firing squads who ruthlessly enforced revolutionary justice and executions. Che Guevara eventually left Cuba to export the revolution globally, a path that ultimately led to his death in Bolivia in 1967. So looking back at this entire journey, I want to leave you with a question to ponder. Was Che Guevara a heroic liberator or a ruthless executioner? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer of the historical material, and I really hope this encourages you to dive even deeper into this fascinating history.